there was ever a time to make an artwork that was easy, lightweight, predictable, this would have been it. But I had an idea, and I couldn't compromise.
What gave you the idea for this artwork?
I reflected on my years in Malta and what affected me most. And that was, without a doubt, the assassination of investigative journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia in 2017. She was killed with a car bomb, and the case is still unresolved. And I wanted to place this in the context of historic political violence on the island, like the 1977 unsolved murder of 15-year-old Karen Gregg, who was killed with a letter bomb. And what really struck me was the dissonance between the solidarity and generosity of the Maltese during the Second World War and these horrific acts of political violence against their own.
So how did this context shape your artwork?
Well, when I had the idea, it was summer, and it seemed simple enough. A sculpture made of limestone and my usual material, copper. But as the concept developed, things got trickier. Because, you see, I had to work with Maltese limestone, and my studio is in Sweden. And that's how Malta temporarily got a bit smaller, when a chunk of it traveled 3,000 kilometers north, only just making it the last stretch to my studio. For me, it wasn't enough that it looked like a bit of Malta's bedrock. It had to be the real thing.
Once you received the stone, did things get easier?
No, winter got worse and we were thoroughly snowed in. Working in the studio wasn't a problem. I live right next to it. But the copper structure needed welding, which is really difficult. And that's why I set off on what I can only describe as an Arctic expedition to get to my car and drive half a day to a great blacksmith who I knew could weld it.
What is the copper structure that you made?
I wanted to create a sculpture based on the Maltese cross, with one of its arms rising out of the limestone. After countless hours of polishing, I was finally happy with the result, a mirror finish that interacts with the stone, reflecting its surface.
I know that words feature often in your art. Tell me about the ones you used here.
I usually etch words in copper, but for this sculpture I felt very strongly that the words had to be part of the very bedrock of the island. It's a section from the Maltese constitution that defines the rights of the individual, and they were expertly engraved by Maltese craftsmen before the stone left for Sweden. I wanted to honor the Maltese and the Malta I love, but unresolved political murders are a national trauma. The country is carrying a grim legacy. When I was approached to make this artwork for the National Art Collection, one of the key questions was, why do we collect? We collect to remember